6:01, call to order this meeting.
6:30.
Oh, 6:31. It's been a long day. We would all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This meeting started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we start the meeting, if we could have everyone turn off their cell phones or put them on vibrate so it's not distracting. So roll call of the board members, please.
Bruce Ashcraft,
Present.
Alan Howe,
Here.
Chad McKittrick,
Here.
Rob Platt, TJ Rotovac.
And before we move on, just want to remind some people of the rules here. Once your application is called, a staff presentation will be given. Following the presentation, you can approach the podium, be sworn in, and explain your application and answer questions from the board. Once the applicant has spoken, there will be an opportunity for the public to comment. When you testify, please be sure to speak facts into the record. No opinions or anything. If this is going to hurt my feelings that if this gets passed, or I don't like this simply because of the dogs or whatnot. Please speak loudly and into the microphone so that we're being recorded today, so there's a proper record. You'll raise your right hand and the clerk will swear you in. And voting is pretty much a standard voting process here. And so I understand there's some old business. It's my understanding that the variance application VA 19-002 was supposed to be removed from the table, but it is not. And can I have an explanation on that, please?
Yeah, that's correct. So for VA 19-002, there was a miscommunication that resulted in the notifications and scheduling not being posted for this application. So unfortunately, we'll be able to take your hearing testimony on today, take a vote on it. However, the board's zoning appeals did determine, and the last time it was tabled, that it would be taken off the table during this meeting. So we can take that off the table, but then it'll have to be put back onto the table.
Okay. So are we voting to just completely remove it?
You'd be voting to take it out off the table, but then you have to vote it to retable it again.
Right.
But the last time it was tabled, it was set. Yeah, it was a set amount of time that it was
Okay,
tabled.
for this
until-
meeting specifically?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so my understanding is we just gotta put it back on the table and remove it again.
Do we need to vote at all?
What?
If it's off the table now, do we need to vote at all?
It's an excellent question.
Well, let me ask you this. Was there any communication from the applicant since the decision from the county on Wednesday?
The Planning and Zoning Commission on Wednesday?
Correct.
No, we haven't received any communications from the applicant.
I would be wary of simply withdrawing the application without some prior notice to the applicant.
But we wouldn't be able to either deny it or approve it as the notifications weren't sent out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because this is a system of due process and
right.
under the Constitution, and so part of it is A, notice, and B, an opportunity to be heard. So,
We make a motion to leave it on the table instead of not on-tabling it and then retabling it?
I think we can make a motion to leave it on the table for one more month, and then go from there. So,
Due to the following conditions, we could say, due to the following conditions, due to the notification there.
yeah. So let's motion, maybe we'll have a motion to leave it on the table instead of, twofold thing. And, with the understanding that notification will go out to all the parties. Do I have a motion?
I hereby motion to leave, which one is it, I'm sorry,
BA 19002.
VA 19002 to be tabled
To
until,
remain.
to remain tabled until the next BZA meeting.
I'll second
And discussion? Any discussion?
No.
And, we'll take a vote.
Ms. Rotobeck?
Yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
And that will settle the variance application VA 19-002. Next on, we'll move on to the agenda, B under old business, and that is use variance application VA 19-011. And it's my understanding, that we are removing this from the table for consideration tonight. Is
That's
that correct?
That's correct.
So do I have a motion to remove this from the table and for consideration tonight?
Yes.
Is there a second?
A second?
Any discussion? Roll call, vote please.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes.
Ms. Rotobeck?
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Okay, and that has been removed from the table and it will be under consideration this evening. If we could get the staff report, please.
Yes, sir. So, like you said, this is VA 19-011. Location here is at 131 Oak Meadow Drive, approximately 0.35 acres size, currently zoned R10 highest density residential, and the applicant is requesting approval of a use variance pursuant to section 1211.07B of the Pataskala Code to allow for the property to be used as a small grocery store. So as you remember, this application was tabled during our last hearing, so I won't dwell on much of this information, but it is here for reference in case we need it. Like I said, their proposal is to operate a small ethnic grocery store in the existing building. There are no exterior alterations proposed. They expect no more than 8 to 10 vehicles to be parked at any one time in the rear of the building, but they do expect a continuous flow of traffic in small numbers, and the proposed business hours are from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday. So this is the review from the last hearing. Again, won't dwell too much on this. Future land use map designates it as high density residential. Property has changed uses a few times. It was a doctor's office in the 60s. Eventually became what it is now with that small construction office. So we'll kind of gloss over this stuff here. We will get to what we have for today's meeting, excuse me. So following the May 13th hearing, staff was to meet with both the applicants and the property owner to the north to discuss possible solutions to the concerns that were raised during that hearing. Those concerns being, number 1, change of ownership, 2, hours of operation, 3, lighting, 4, dumpsters, 5, can a commercial business use trash cans, 6, landscaping and screening, and 7, the use of the northern driveway to the rear parking lot. So staff met with the neighboring property owners on Saturday, May 25th to discuss, and they submitted, the property owners to the north submitted the following follow-up letter outlining their concerns, which is attached to your staff report. However, there's a short summary up here. So their main concerns were with a lack of privacy with retail use, as the current use as office involves minimal amount of traffic per day. They worried that a retail business operating 7 days a week would significantly increase traffic. The interior layout is currently set up for an office, so if the interior structure is changed to support retail, a precedent will be set that the building is only suited to be used for retail in the future. Retail use does not mesh well with surrounding residential character. The location is not well suited to retail use, not noticeable from Broad Street, and that leads them to be concerned that if there would be an increased risk of failure, relating back to the concerns, of course, of setting precedent that another retail business may try to move in after. They were concerned about the resale value of their home, which would be adversely affected, they believe, and the overall arching characterization would be the negatively affect their property, quality of life, and resale value. They would not like to see the property become retail. However, they are amenable to the property remaining similar to use to what is existing. staff, we also reached out to the applicant to have them provide responses to the previously mentioned concerns. Their responses are attached there to the staff report, and they are also up here on the board. One, so change of ownership, they responded that they are planning to buy the property if the application is approved. 2, hours of operation are to be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Lighting will be installed as required per city requirements. And 4, dumpsters, so a dumpster will be required for waste generated, however, they will check with the collection company on the possibility of limiting the pickup hours. 5, can a commercial business use trash cans? Again, see the number 4, the answer for that, they'll have to use a dumpster. 6, landscaping and screening, so their response was there are no plans for landscaping or screening other than what is required by the city. And 7, the use of the northern driveway, so the northern driveway will have to be used to access the rear of the parking area. Surrounding properties, to the north we have it zoned R10, high density residential, to single family home currently. To the east and south it's zoned RM, multifamily, and are both apartment complexes. And to the west is also zoned R10, high density residential, and is more single family homes. Just a graphic look at what the surrounding zoning districts are. So all this lighter tealish color here is the R10, green is multifamily, and blue down here to the south on Broad Street is general business. Your findings of fact are available up here, or also in your staff report. There are 3 additional findings of facts that we'll use for the use variances are also listed in your staff report. And we do have the following supplementary conditions that the board may consider if you choose to approve this application. The first one shall be the applicant shall coordinate with the planning and zoning department to address all parking, lighting, signage, buffering, and other site design items as part of the certificate of compliance application process. 2, the applicant shall coordinate with the public service director to address how deliveries will be made to the site and for any driveway, parking lot, and or stormwater improvements. 3, being the applicant shall submit plans to the Lincoln County Building Department for approval of a change in use group. And 4, being the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and Lincoln County Building Department prior to operation of the business. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And the materials that we received on this, I noticed that there was a note here from the fire department.
Yes.
And all of these concerns that they list here, they were specific to this property?
Yeah, no, so with that, I understand how you might got that confused. So the West, their only comment for this variance is the top paragraph there. Where they have the 1, 2, 3. There it's listed as actually for the preliminary development plan for scenic view stage, which was for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
So, let's see. The only concerns they had in regard to this application were the concerns in regards to the change of use group. The applicant should submit plans to the Lincoln County Building Department for approval, which should be satisfied by the 3rd supplementary condition that we have there.
Any other questions for the board, please?
No.
No. And is the applicant here today? Would you like to come up to the podium and present more testimony?
I do have a question.
You have a question for the applicant? There's a question for you, so if you would mind,
Yeah.
you don't have to sign in there, just come up to the podium, provide your name and address, and be sworn in.
Gian Abdullah, 440 BZA Walcott, Pataskala, Ohio, 43062.
Raise your hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And, you can
So the products that you're gonna be supplying, will they be homegrown kind of, or like, where is your supply chain?
Well, they're basically like the Indian items, Indian or Southeast Asian. They are not homegrown or the product here, but they will be brought from outside.
Okay, so like eggs and poultry, the meat items?
No meat item. I
No
understand.
meat items, and then like any other kind of supplements?
Well,
like-
it could be mostly we're looking for the rice we use spices, so many different kind of spices.
right.
And other produce, vegetables.
Okay. Okay, that's what I was
Thank you.
interested in. I would like to have these two supplements, and then if you feel like it's a full thing, as far as the
Sure,
and the FDA,
sure.
just one that's going to be different.
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else here in the public today that has not submitted a speaker request form that would like to speak on this matter? Let the record show that no one has made that request. Any other questions before the board, or before the staff from the board?
Can I ask what this notice, or who this is from?
Yes, so that was, I believe we received that, when did we receive that? Friday, this past Friday. We sent out the notice of the public hearing, we had it returned, with a note from a neighbor at 208 Isaac Tharp Street, stating that she was unable to attend the public hearing, however, she is okay with the grocery store opening up at the location proposed.
And who is this,
The neighbor at 208 Isaac Tharp Street.
which is next door?
I don't believe it's next door. I believe 208 Isaac Tharp Street would be
Right behind us.
behind it, to the west.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we go through the findings of fact. Okay. Grab my materials here. We're gonna go through some findings of fact, with regards to application number VA-19-011. And, these are findings of fact that, we consider, in, ruling on the application. And so, some of the factors that we consider are as follows. Whether the property, and I'm asking the board, to give an answer with regards to these factors. Number 8, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
I will say yes to this one, so that is 3-1. B, whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property.
Yes.
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 Yeah, there's no yard.
I will say yes also. Whether the variance requested is substantial.
Yes.
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 I will say yes to this one also. D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance.
No.
It'd definitely be altered.
Yeah, whether
There's
there's
not a grocery
substantial.
store there now, so I'd have to say yes.
I think I can say yes.
I will say yes also. E, whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property.
No.
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 I will say yes to this one, but I'm outvoted. F, whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare.
No.
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 I say no also. Whether the variance, if granted, would adversely affect the delivery of government services.
No.
Say no also. Whether the property owner purchased the subject property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. In this case, the applicant has not purchased the property, but he is aware. So with
Yes.
that in mind,
Yes.
I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than a variance.
Yes.
No.
You get
Not
it.
at this-
Not at this
Not for the property.
location, but
I'd say yes. I mean,
I think we have to look at this specific property
but I'd say
here.
no then.
okay, then no, that's,
In theory, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
J, whether the variance if granted will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement at issue.
yes, the least afford. Minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modifications. I say yes.
Yes. Yes.
I say no to this one, but I am outvoted. Whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
I'd say no.
No.
My vote is no also. Because of unique circumstances that this is a use variance, we have to consider additional factors pursuant to 1211.07B of the Pataskla Code. And so these are additional findings of fact that we must consider. And under letter A here, it is the applicant or owner created the alleged hardship.
Yes.
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 My answer to that is yes also. B, the board finds that the application is primarily made for purposes of convenience or profit, or whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property from being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property.
Yes.
I'd say yes too. Yes.
Say that the answer to this is yes also. C, that a substantial ground offered in support of an application for use variance is the existence of other non-conforming use of neighboring lands, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district or in other zoning districts.
I got that as a 4 to me.
That's an ignore. I think we need to have this or clarified for these also.
Do we know of any other non-conforming uses such as this one, or similar to this one, and other zoning districts in Pataskla?
Do we have any local convenience stores in residential?
Not to my knowledge.
Has there ever been, to your knowledge, any of you guys that have been here?
Not that I remember.
None that I can recall.
That's
What was the one by Broad and Mink years ago?
The one on Broad Street.
Right by
Oh.
Mink, just east of Mink.
Oh, the
Yeah,
liquor,
Stevens Market.
Yeah,
Is it
that
like
wasn't
a liquor
residential,
store,
I just
right?
threw it out there.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll read this again. We're to decide whether there is a substantial ground offered and support of an application for use variance is the existence of other non-conforming use of neighboring lands, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district or in other zoning districts.
Really, the building in question would fit in.
Yeah, but it's no longer, I mean, that, it's no longer a business, right?
Well, I mean, I believe it has been used as an
Oh.
office.
Even though it's a residential zone.
Okay, yeah.
My belief is that,
It says other.
for, I've not seen anything from the applicant to support this fact. I have seen some evidence in testimony from the staff that, there's been, other non-conforming use of neighboring lands, and one is this property specifically, which is, use variance as an office currently. As far as grocery stores or retail, I do not know of one, and I've not seen evidence of one. So I will say no as to this one.
I agree, no.
It's agreed. Nope.
Any further discussion on the findings of fact as we've labeled them here?
No.
Next, I guess we will see if there's a motion to approve this application.
Our cliff notes. Next page. I move to approve use variance pursuant to section 1211.07B of the Pataskala Code for application VA 19-011 with the following supplementary conditions, if conditions are to be placed on the approval. Following supplement conditions. 1, the applicant shall coordinate with the planning and zoning department to address all parking, lighting, signage, buffering, and other site design items as part of the certificate of compliance application process. 2, the applicant shall coordinate with the public service department to address how deliveries will be made to the site and for any driveway, parking lot, and or stormwater improvements. 3, the applicant shall submit plans to the Licking County Building Department for approval for a change in use group. 4, the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the City of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Department prior to the operation of the business.
No. Do I have a second?
Yes.
And is there any discussion by the board?
No.
Mr. Howe?
No, thank you.
There are a couple things I would like to say in relation to some of the comments I made at the last meeting. And I've looked at this before. I don't believe I have a conflict of interest simply because I know Mr. Cope and he has spoken out against this application in the past. I know Mr. Cope from attending high school with him. I've not seen him in the past 20 to 25 years. And the last time, or the first time I had seen him since then was at the last meeting. The second thing is my feeling is that we need a grocery store of this type because I do see a good deal of Bhutanese and Nepalis making their home in our city. And I think that this is a service that needs to be here in our city. the third thing that I'd like to say though is that, my feeling is that this board should not be making a precedence by, engaging in, spot zoning and types like that. And I get concerned when I see that the findings of fact, specifically for use variances under 1211.07B, all of those findings should go against approving this application. And those are the only comments that I'd like to make at this time. And based on that, does anyone else have any further comments?
I agree, it's something that Pataskala needs. And I agree that the zoning is an issue in setting precedents for other future uses in areas. But I also wanna make sure that we're taking care of those that are coming into Pataskala. So I feel, almost like I'd like to abstain at this point, just because of, you
Sure.
know, the uncertainty.
Sure.
Yeah, taking care of the elder, you know, they brought that up, and that's important that they can walk and get to, some of those areas, so I don't know.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, I think I might abstain just, you know, on the fact that, on surety of this one.
Sure. Mr. Howe, do you have any comments?
It's a unique property that, couple things, it's, even though it's zoned residential, it's kind of tucked in multi-housing and a block away from obviously commercial.
Right.
The property itself, it would be difficult to do anything with that because of all that lack of lawn or parking area. So it's one I struggle with because the findings of fact don't support it.
They don't, and for future, you know, uses of zoning that could be used against us as a board.
Correct. Any other comments?
No. No more.
That'll end the discussion. We could have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ashcraft,
No.
Mr. Howe,
No.
Mr. McKittrick,
No.
Ms. Rodebeck.
Abstain?
And I apologize to the applicant. This motion and this application has been turned down. You do have a time period for appeal. If you will discuss with Ms. Paxton, do you get in touch with them at all?
I send a letter out that you can call.
Okay? Thank you, sir. And that takes care of all of the old business on our agenda. We should now go to agenda number 5 and number 5A. Variance application VA-19-015. We could have a staff report, please.
Yes, sir. So like you said, this is VA 19015. The applicant is the Pataskala Banking Company located at 14530 East Broad Street. Current size about 1.68 acres, zone GB general business. And they are requesting approval of a variance from section 129509B2C of the Pataskala Code to allow for a freestanding ground sign to exceed the maximum permitted sign square footage of 32 square feet. So if you go up here, we can take a look at the area map with the parcel itself outlined in yellow, and you have Broad Street running west to east here to the south. So again, property itself is 1.68 acres, currently occupied by a 2,822 square foot bank that was built in 1989, has 2 drive-through lanes and approximately 25,000 square feet of parking lot space, with 2 access drives on East Broad Street, one on the east and one on the west. Take a look, we get a closer view of how the existing property is laid out with the bank itself and the parking lot surrounding, with 1 access to Broad Street on the east and 1 to the west. So on the proposal itself, section 129509B2C Pataskala Code states that freestanding ground signs shall be no greater than 32 square feet, no taller than 10 feet, and located at least 10 feet outside of the right-of-way. So the current sign is located within that 10 feet and exceeds the 10-foot height maximum. However, because it is an existing non-conforming sign, it has been continuously grandfathered in, and the current sign size is unknown. Take a look here. This is where the existing sign is outlined in red. You can see it right on the border here, the yellow. So the applicant is proposing to route the lower support of the existing sign, with the dimensions being on the front and rear 10 feet in height and 44.5 inches in width, and on the sides another 10 feet in height and 14 inches in width, for a total square footage to be added of 48.75. Take a look here. This is what the proposed sign wrap will look like. So the big part up here with the electronic display where it says the summit branch is what is existing, they will just be wrapping the existing support structure on the bottom here with this design that they have proposed. So originally the applicant applied for a sign permit. Staff informed the applicant that they could not approve said permit because it exceeded the maximum sign square footage. And we informed the applicant that they did have the option to pursue a variance, which they have chosen to do so. In the narrative statement that was supplied by the applicant, they stated that the current sign has no verbiage or marking on the subject part of the structure, and adding the wrap will yield return as it identifies the location. They do not believe that the essential character of the neighborhood will be altered, and it will represent the least modification possible to afford relief. And the spirit and intent of the zoning code will be upheld by not adding additional structure to the sign, only by wrapping what is existing. This is what the existing sign looks like today. And you can see looking to the west and from the east. So they are wrapping what this existing structure is right here on the bottom, and the top will be remaining the same. So as part of this application, staff has several comments. Proposed signage is 48.75 square feet. The maximum permitted is 32 square feet for an increase of 16.75 or 52.3%. However, this does not account for the existing signage, which is currently unknown. The applicant is only placing signage on the existing support structure. Code defines a sign as any object, device, display, etc. situated outdoors or indoors, which is used to advertise, identify, etc., or attract attention to any object, person, business location, etc., by means of including words, letters, figures, etc. So the existing support structure did not meet this definition, so it was not counted towards the square foot maximum. However, since it is being wrapped in a design, it will fall under that definition and must be counted towards the overall square footage. But staff has not identified any other concerns with the proposal. We routed this to other departments and agencies and received no other comments. So as far as the surrounding properties, to the north we have it zoned R20, medium density residential. It's currently single family homes. To the east and to the south is general business, which is an auto sales lot and partly vacant on the south. To the south we also have multifamily residential, which is an apartment complex. And to the west we have a more general business, which is currently a single family home. Here's a graphic representation of the surrounding zoning properties. So everything in the bright red here is general business. This lighter green color to the north is all R20, and this orange color here is the multifamily. Your findings of fact are up here on the board and also presented in your staff report. In addition, so under section 1211.072, there is some additional factors that can be considered by the board when determining if the variance is applicable. So the one we had was 1211.072G, which is to increase the maximum allowable height or area of signs on a lot, and it suggested that the same should not be increased by more than 25%. The applicant has proposed an increase of 52.3. So the supplementary conditions, we only have one that the board may choose to consider, that being the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Tascala and the Lincoln County Building Code Department within 1 year of date of approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the staff by the board members?
No.
Is the applicant here today and wish to speak, provide some testimony?
If you want. I mean,
It's up to you, sir.
I just, sure.
Come on up and
All right.
state your name and address and be sworn in by Lisa.
Jim Sorosi, the address I use is 14530 East Broad Street, Aspen.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Sir, if you wanna provide some testimony and
Sure.
access to.
As stated by Jack, we're merely proposing, a wrap on the existing structure. No additional structure will be designed or created. It is business, general business use. We're trying to mirror our other location from a branding standpoint. We have heard from numerous customers and non-customers, they didn't recognize it was a bank. So we feel that this would enhance the brand marketing recognition for the institution or for the bank, and it would fit right in with the overall area of the business area. That's plain and simple. It's no additional structure, just simply a wrap. And I think you did show them a picture of what it would look like.
Sure.
So that was it.
Any questions for the applicant from the board?
When you say a wrap, I
Yes.
mean, is it, is it a temporary?
No, it's, I don't know if you've seen how they wrap cars now.
Yes.
It's very similar to that.
Okay.
So, but the one that we have at our other location has been up there for a couple of years. People now recognize that it is a bank. It's, a community bank here in Patapsco. And that's what we're trying to do, is to enhance and continue business at that location. So, that's why we're requesting the appeal. And as Jack had mentioned, none of the other departments had any concerns or comments for what we're work on. So that's merely, it is what it is.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
With that said, I did not receive any speaker request forms for this application. If there's any member out in the public here that would like to speak to this matter, please step up. Being that there are none, we will move on and go on to our findings of fact here for this matter. And for the findings of fact with regards to application number VA-19-015 pursuant to section 1211.07A1, we must consider the following factors. A, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property.
Yes.
Yes, I vote yes also. Whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property, I would say more so the sign, being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulation that such a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property or sign.
Yes.
Yes. Say no.
I say yes also. That's 3-1. Whether the variance requested is substantial.
Percentage-wise it is.
Yeah, no is what,
But overall,
Yeah.
the sign is
the
already
wrap
there,
is,
so I'm gonna say no.
yeah, it's grandfathered in, there's really.
Mr. Ashcraft?
I'd say no.
My vote is no also. Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance.
No.
Ms. Rodebeck?
Sorry, I had
It's okay.
a family text.
The family wants to weigh in too.
They do, yes. Which one are we on? I'm sorry.
Number D.
D, no, yes, I studied, had no.
My answer is no also. E, whether the variance if granted will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property.
No.
No.
My answer is no also. F, whether the variance if granted will be detrimental to the public welfare.
No.
No.
My answer is no also. Whether the variance if granted would adversely affect the delivery of government services.
No.
No.
My answer is no also. Whether the property and owner purchased the subject property with knowledge of the zoning restriction, they've had knowledge of what the restrictions required. I don't believe, did they make an application first for the sign and then, so I imagine, sir, can you just briefly tell us for the record whether you had knowledge of this requirement before you submitted the application or
The,
not?
the current application,
Yeah,
did we have knowledge of the requirement? Yes.
okay.
Keep,
But they
keep in
didn't
mind, the
purchase.
sign has been up there
I,
Yeah.
I
since they,
understand.
that's why I'm saying, like, it's
I
kind of up
understand
to
that, sir.
interpretation.
I will say,
Say no,
I would say no.
since it's grandfathered in, that
Yeah.
it wasn't
correct.
a restriction at the time.
No. Sorry for that. This is a tricky one, as always. Whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than variance.
No.
My answer is no also. Whether the variance if granted will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement at issue.
Yes.
Yes.
My answer is yes also. K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
Yes.
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 My answer is yes also. And we have, the findings of fact, there. I forgot to read it off at the last time. It's not necessary. Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion on this variance? Application VA-19-015.
I move to approve the variance section 1295.05B2C of the Pataskla Code for variance application VA 19015 with the following supplementary conditions if conditions are to be placed on the approval. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the City of Pataskla and Licking County Building Code within 1 year of date of approval.
We have a motion to approve this application. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion by the board. None from me. And can we have a roll call of the vote, please?
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft,
Yes?
Mr. McKittrick,
Yes.
Ms. Ritterbeck.
Yes.
Application VA-19-015 has been approved. Ms. Paxton will be in touch with you with regards to the approval. Thank you, and you're free to leave.
Yeah.
Moving along here, we have, on our agenda, we next have, on our agenda, new business B, variance application VA-19-016. Staff, if you could, present the report, please.
Yes, sir. So, like I said, this is VA-19-016, and the location of this one is at 40 Cypress Street, approximately 6 acres in size, currently zoned M1 light manufacturing, and the applicant's requesting approval of a variance from section 129102A4 of the Pataskla Code to allow for construction of a gravel parking lot extension. So, you may be familiar with this property before. They did have a variance approved previously. Area map shown up here, the parcels outlined in yellow with Cypress Street to the south and Cleva Drive on the east. So again, two frontages, Cypress Street and on Cleva Drive. There's a 3,000 square foot existing building with 18,000 square feet of concrete surrounding that and approximately 60,000 square feet of gravel. This is the existing conditions on the site. You can see the building here with the concrete surround and the existing gravel surrounding that. So a little bit of history. Again, the applicant was granted a variance, VA-19-005 on April 8th, 2019. That was for a 230 foot by 130 foot, or excuse me, 100 foot or 23,000 square foot gravel parking lot extension. However, when the applicant did come in to submit the zoning permit for said parking lot, the dimensions had changed from 230 foot from 100 to 230 foot by 400, or approximately 92,000 square feet. So this is what was previously approved by BA 1905. You can see this was the proposed extension that was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So staff informed the applicant that they are unable to approve the permit as it exceeded what was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. There's a few options that we gave them, one being either to reduce the size of the proposed extension to what was approved, or may submit for another variance. So obviously the applicant has chosen to pursue another variance. And this is with the proposed gravel expansion now. You can see 230 foot to match what is existing by 400 foot to come back towards the rear of the parcel. So again, 1291-02A4 states that all off-street parking shall be hard surface with asphaltic, cement, concrete, or pavers. The proposed gravel parking lot extension is now 230 feet by 400 feet, or 92,000 square feet, or a 300% increase over what was previously approved. The expansion, as stated in the narrative that was supplied by the applicant, the expansion is needed to keep up with the current and future business. The existing lot limits the amount of delivery intake that can be handled at any one time, and they have concerns about possible damage to any paved surface by dragging the existing gravel onto it. The contractor also expressed some concerns that to properly grade the site, much more area needed to be cleared than originally thought, and that it made financial sense to extend the lot to the fullest available extent. So as part of our review, staff would like to offer the following comments. Again, section 1291-02A4 prohibits gravel, hence the need for a variance. As stated by the applicant, proposed new dimensions require much more of the site to be clear than originally intended. The site plan that was submitted shows that some of it will be in an area that was previously occupied by trees. However, it is likely that trees must be removed to accommodate the extension and grading. So section 1283-03 of the Tesla Code states any trees being removed over 8-inch caliper must be replaced at the appropriate ratio as determined by table 1283-03-01. Staff would like to see a tree survey to determine if any replacements are needed and how many will be needed, and a possible modification has been added to address those. Staff is aware that several trees that served as screening on the east side of Klima Drive were removed during construction of the fence that was approved by BA 19-004 on April 8th also. So that variance was approved with the condition that additional landscaping be installed along Klima Drive, and the fence permit was approved with provisions for shrubs to be installed. Currently, there is no additional landscaping installed. However, the permit for that fence has yet to expire. Since all permits have a year expiration date, they still have within that time frame to install landscaping. As the applicant is proposing to further extend parking areas, however, along the length of the lot and remove additional trees, staff believes screening along Klima Drive is warranted. So the screening requirement should meet the requirements of section 1283.07. That would be L2 type, which is a continuous 3-foot high shrub and 1 tree per 30 lineal feet. Alternatively, they may substitute that shrub with a 3-foot high berm or wall. And possible modification was also added to address this. So here's how the lot looks currently. This is looking along Cypress to the east along the front of the property, standing at the intersection of Cypress and Klima looking to the west. Standing on Cypress Street looking north along Klima Drive, you can see the fence that was installed here in Klima Drive, and looking south at the end of Klima Drive, just before the curve, looking south along the fence wall there. So as part of this review, we routed this to different departments and agencies around the city. We received some comments back from the city engineer. Number one being the conditions of the OEPA general construction permit must be adhered to, and a stormwater pollution prevention plan needs to be submitted for construction activities. Two being additional stormwater calculations and drainage improvements for detention will need to be submitted and reviewed to ensure that the improvements meet current city standards and do not negatively affect downstream properties. Three being consideration should be given to expanding the existing concrete drive approaches to ensure gravel does not encroach onto the public roadway. The public service director also had the following comment, that one being stormwater quality and quantity stormwater quality and quantity requirements shall be addressed. The applicant has indicated that a bioretention basin will be installed and is currently working with the Public Service Director for that design. We did not receive any other comments from any applicable agencies or departments. Surrounding properties to the north, east, south, and west is all zoned M1 light manufacturing residential, except for some R20, which is directly across the railroad tracks to the north. And we can see that here, again, just a visual description, or visual showing what the surrounding zonings are. So all this orange here is M1. Further to the north across the railroad tracks is R20, and there is some R20 to the south down here. Again, the findings of fact are provided up here and also in your staff report. And we do have the 4 following supplementary conditions that the board may consider if they approve this application. First one being the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Department within 1 year of the date of approval. 2 being the applicant shall address all comments from the city engineer and the public service director. 3 being the applicant will perform a tree survey of the area to be developed, which will be submitted to planning and zoning staff. And 4, the applicant will provide L2 type landscaping along the front end of Klima Drive. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Does the board have any questions for the staff?
Didn't we have a tree survey as part of the other variance, or was it a different case?
No, not as part as they had 2 variances on April 8th. One of them was for the fence, the height of the fence, and the second one was for that gravel extension, and neither of those had a supplementary condition for a tree survey.
It's my recollection that I was not here at that meeting. Were you here?
I believe so, yeah. I was.
What was the vote for the variance at that meeting?
I don't believe I have that information offhand right now.
Does any of the board
Both the variances were approved.
Yeah, I remember.
I thought there was some, but we had another of the storage unit. I think that's where I might be getting confused. I know with the storage unit, we did have a tree survey on that one. So
I know we had
think-
one on one, yeah.
Yeah.
It just reminded me of that.
Sorry for my ignorance,
That's okay.
because I
That's
was
fine.
not here that day.
Your mentioning of the landscaping not being done yet, was there an actual permit issued, or is?
Yeah,
Is
we
that
did
what this
issue
is
a
for?
fence permit, and on that fence permit, there was some provisions included for shrubbery to be installed along the fence on Klima Drive.
So it has the fence for the complete, how many thousand acres or streets?
6 plus 1.
So we approved 60,000 square feet, and it's up to 90.
I believe with VA 19005, it was approved at 23,000 square feet. I can pull
Okay.
it up here in just a moment.
There you go.
Yes, 23,000 square feet there, which was a 100 by 230 foot extension. They're asking for a 230 foot by 400 foot now, which is 92,000 square
Is the
feet.
fence already around that whole area?
Yes, the variance for the fence was granted for them to put a 6-foot fence, in front of the building setback line along Klima Drive. Since it's a corner lot, they
Mhm.
typically have 2 front yards. So there's a 6-foot fence running the length of Klima Drive on that side. And as the applicant's now proposing to extend the parking area more than what was previously approved, we felt it would be appropriate for them to increase the landscaping up to what's required by code.
And it looked like there was a pad already there, a limestone pad already in place.
Here,
Yeah.
there is, this area in the rear has already been cleared previously, but it's just, I
What's the
believe it's
current
just
condition?
soil right now.
So they want to put a limestone pad in. Is that
I'm-
my-
I think they wanted to extend the gravel parking lot all the way back about 400 feet from where it's existing now.
And currently it's just dirt, soil.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my next questions will be for the applicant. Any other questions for the staff from the board?
No.
Is there an exit that's planned anywhere other than the front?
So there was nothing indicated on the site plans that there would be an exit onto Cleva Drive.
Cause we were concerned about the gravel to asphalt.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you.
If the applicant were to do an entrance, obviously they'd have to get a right-of-way permit and coordinate that with our public service director and city engineers beforehand, so.
Okay.
Any other questions for the board? Okay, would the applicant, for this application VA 19-016 approach the podium if they desire? If you put in your, state your name into the microphone and address.
Alex Yaknitsky, 1015 Cole Road, Galloway, Ohio 43119. And I'm the engineer working on this project, so.
Okay, you have to be.
Yes,
Oh,
right.
sorry, sir.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm the engineer that working on this project. So I was here at the first application, there was a little miscommunication. We thought the variance was to use gravel as a parking lot, not to be limited to 100 feet, but just to be used as a surface. So the current existing, if you see, it's a little distribution center, used to be, I think, United Dairy. And there's a concrete pad for the loading, the rest of it is already gravel parking lot.
Is it like a limestone pad
Yeah,
already?
gravel, limestone, so
So
just.
it's improved already?
Yeah, so it's already there, so the variance was for to put a fence and to use the gravel as an extension of the parking lot. So that's where the miscommunication was, we don't know it was limited to just 100 feet. The 100 feet was the initial application because we didn't know the process of the variance. So that's where, and so I've been working with the city engineer, designing a bioretention pond for water quality, water quantity. And that's where we get to the commission, if we're gonna be building a bioretention pond and putting all the money in that goes along with it, then might as well use up the whole space to extend for the gravel. There is, the trees is a little miscommunication. The calculations was done for the whole lot, for the stormwater calculations. As it is, right now, there's no plans to remove any trees. So kind of where the dirt's at, that's where the gravel's gonna go. So there is no plans to remove any trees. And the shrubs for the fence hasn't been put in yet because we put that off to finish off all the construction activities and then go in the last thing to do landscaping. So the shrubs will be going in front of the fence where it's put the clean, not in front of the side street, but on the side yard. The shrubs will be going into just kind of withholding until all the construction activities done out there and the equipment gets moved away.
May I ask you, what's the business that's conducted on this property?
So right now, it used to be a distribution center, and it's gonna be a distribution center. Just trucking coming in and coming off, and the need for the extended parking lot is there, when the loads are drop off, either semi-trailers or flatbed trailers need to be stored for a period of time till loads come in, can be consolidated and be put back on the load. So the use would be exactly what it has been used, because previously it was just United Dairy, now it's gonna be the current business they bought.
How long has this property not been used?
Oh, I don't know, the current owner purchased it in March, I'm not sure when did United Dairy move out there, I'm not sure. That would make it for them.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
I'll have one more question because I anticipate this issue coming up in a few minutes. Did you have knowledge of this requirement before, or did the owner have knowledge of the requirement before he purchased the property?
No, so we thought that since there's already gravel parking lot existing, we thought that's what the initial permit was to apply, just to extend the existing gravel parking lot. And that's where we ran
But
into.
that is dirt.
Yeah,
No,
yes.
if it's a concrete, if it's a limestone pad,
The
There's a
limestone pad is in the grade. Up north of it, where we proposing the parking lot, right now is dirt.
oh, so it's not, so anything past,
So,
Yeah, right here is the border between the gravel, where the existing gravel is, and there's a concrete pad surrounding the
so
building.
that's a concrete pad, but is there limestone,
yes,
like,
all around is limestone.
cause it looks like a limestone pad to me that that goes from the back, where the asphalt is back, but I don't know, I can't tell.
No,
the back.
so you see the building in
Yeah.
white, that's a building, around is concrete, like, loading off area.
Yeah.
And all around the concrete and the gray, it's all limestone.
Oh, okay.
And
So
so that's what initially we thought, since
Okay.
limestone's already there,
Right,
and we applied just to extend the gravel parking that's already existing there, that's where we're into that, there has to be hard surface. And it doesn't make sense, cause around it, there's like either 60 or 70,000 square feet already gravel. So it doesn't make sense for it to be gravel. The unloading area is just cement or concrete, the rest is gravel. So if you go in gravel and then to concrete with the new one, that's what the variance is asked for, is just to extend the existing gravel.
Let me ask this question. Was it your intent to put gravel all the way to the back when you first submitted the first
No,
variance?
so initial one, we didn't know they had to go through the variance, so initial one was just to extend it 100 feet for additional parking lot for a semi-truck trailers. But then we ran into the issue that you have to retain it because you're gonna be increasing the parking lot. So you have to put in a bioretention and the cost of it, and basins and stuff, so the bioretention has to be built for either 100 feet or to the full extent of 400 feet. So initial request was just for the application, just to extend the gravel parking lot without doing we didn't know there was all these other conditions attached to that. So the original was supposed to be just 100 feet draining to the existing infrastructure, because there's storm sewer catch basin existing on the parking lot. But when we kind of start working with the city engineer, that you have to build its own infrastructure, you have to build a bioretention basin on it to capture any existing, if you do 10 feet of extra gravel, then we're gonna be putting in the improvement, and we're actually working with them to put more bioretention than's necessary for this, to kind of give a further water quality and water quantity than required with the city code.
I guess I'm confused at the aspect of, from the initial application, if it was only for 100 feet, and now we're asking for it to be extended to 400 feet, why there's a difference?
The initial one of the 100 feet was what we applied for the application just for the parking lot, just to get a permit for the parking lot. And that's what we were told, that, oh, you need to go through variance. So just the same application was used for variance, the 100 feet. We thought that the variance was just so we can use it as a gravel. Just to use gravel as a medium. And that's when we got through the process, that we figured out that you have to do bioretention, and that's when we submitted the permit, and we thought the variance that was granted the last time was just to use the gravel as a medium, or limestone as a medium for the whole parking lot. And that's when, I guess that's where there was a little bit of confusion on that.
Okay,
We knew,
So you had a misunderstanding when you submitted the first application,
yes,
and you simply just wanted to put in gravel for the entire 400 feet.
no, so initially it was for 100 feet. If we thought it's just gonna be a simple getting a permit for just that, for just the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when that got denied, it says if you want to extend it even 10 feet, you have to put a bioretention, which is a great cost. You have to do engineering drawings, you have to do calculations. And so initially the thought was if we just do 100 feet, because that was all that was necessary at the minimum cost, and drain to the existing infrastructure. When we were told that that's not the case, you have to do all these improvements in order even to do 100 feet, then if we're putting down improvements, then you might go in the simple just get the most bang for your buck.
So he just wants to go.
I understand.
Yeah, as a like, kind of where the dirt's at right now, that's where the gravel's going.
Right.
So there's no trees being removed, there's
Right.
no plans for that.
So getting a semi or a flatbed trailer in and turned around without a second entrance, how is that planned?
So there's currently 2 entrances right now off of Cypress Street.
Okay,
So there's 1 and 2.
There's
okay,
Yeah, so there is no plans to put another entrance or anything. So the
So one
existing,
entrance.
the extra parking lot would be just to loading off or dropping off the trailers.
okay.
So there's already 2 entrances, and I guess around the building is kind of the turnaround.
So approximately how many trucks and trailers do you think will be stored at any one time?
It's kind of hard to tell, kind of varies, to be honest. We don't expect the
20, 100?
Between 20 to 30 trucks.
Okay,
Yeah, the time of the this is not a trailer or parking storage. It's more of in and out. But sometimes it's depending on kind of the loads and stuff. It might be a few days or a week that they have to kind of store on site.
but disabled trailers would never be stored
No,
there?
no, that's not. I guess that's not the intention of it.
Okay,
And the current business is just more of a logistic company.
very good, thank you.
Any other questions from the board for the applicant?
No?
I have no further questions. You can have a seat. We may call you back up. With regards to this matter, there is a speaker request form. Is that from the person who just spoke?
I don't remember.
Mr. Alex?
Yes.
That was you?
Yep.
Okay. Is there anyone here, my God. Is there any other member of the public here that would like to speak with regards to this application? There's a gentleman standing up. Will you come up to the podium and state your address?
My name is Scott Mueller,
Name and address.
768 Poppy Hills Drive. I own the buildings across the street to the right of Lehman Drive.
You have to be sworn.
I swear.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
On the two buildings to the right there, just finished the second one up, and when I found the building was sold, I eventually found out that I knew the guy that bought it. Ross bought it, and we talked for a little bit, and I'm a little confused because he told me he sold this, or he told me well, I saw a sign for sale on it, a for sale sign out there. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, we're gonna sell, we bought a better place around 104 for our trucking company. So I guess my question is, okay, if they're not gonna be here, who is gonna be here? That's number one. Number two is, you mentioned that somebody else might try and buy his property, across the street, Tech R2, wanted to buy it, but that wasn't a done deal by any means. They want a lot of parking, is all I know. So I'm wondering if the city is aware of a potential buy from someone else, and then all the rules change again. As far as what's gonna be done with it, what trucks will be in there, what cars will be in there, the purpose of it. So I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
I'll have a seat.
No, you can, I have one question for you, actually. Your questions, we will direct to, the applicant. Although I don't feel that they are pertinent or relevant to the matter at hand, I'll give you the deference of having those questions answered. My question for you is, have you seen this property used in the past?
I have.
And how's it been used?
It's been used by the Derby Company.
Okay, and did they store trucks there?
They did.
Okay.
Same type of
They
use.
were in and out, in and out, in and out, you know.
Yeah, I think I found where it did sell.
They basically were here up
Yes.
until about maybe January this year.
Yeah, I just saw on Franklin Auditor's page that there was a sale, and he did indicate in March there was a sale to, who is our LRH, or LRC Harmon? Is that the trucking company that you're talking about?
No, I keep an answer, I suppose, but,
Cause I think that might be the new owners,
The new owners,
that's what
okay.
the auditor's page
so,
kind
so
of
it's
just
so it won't
alleged
be used
to.
for his trucking company, to use something
Right.
else then.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
this is another trucking
Okay.
company
So
that has purchased,
Okay,
but
okay,
we'll find out for sure.
okay.
Your two specific questions are,
Well, you're right, I did finish my second one. The second one was about the gravel, being enough support that we don't bring mud on the streets. I know you mentioned a wider concrete pad, which is great, I like that. But, there's a lot of weight to these semis, obviously.
Has there been any concern with the previous owners when they're bringing their trucks in and out?
They had some problems, but they took care of them, okay? They took care of them.
And what kind of manufacturing are your buildings?
My buildings they're rentals,
Okay,
okay? And,
light manufacturing,
well, most of it's like contractors,
Do you have semi-trailers going in and
No.
out?
Well, they deliver things from time
Deliver.
to time,
Okay,
maybe once or twice a week we'll see a semi come in.
okay.
Okay. But, I guess my biggest concern is, do we know who's going in? If you already know the answer, that's fine, but, I wanna make sure that the grounds will support all that many trucks. And we'll be dragging, that street we took forever to get that street rebuilt. We finally re-asphalted that street about 5 years ago. And, it's holding up fine right now, but I'm worried about the trucks out there too. How well they're gonna hold up out there. The semis in and out there all day long.
Thank you, sir. And if the applicant would come back up, please. I'm gonna ask you two questions that the gentleman just presented. I'm gonna start first with the second one. If you could explain possibly if this gravel will be enough to support the truck traffic that you anticipate for this property?
Yes.
And what is your feeling or opinion as to the effect as to the surrounding streets?
I would say it's normal with what, kinda, like I said, I'm just an engineer, so I'm not the owner. But there's, like, right next to it is a mulching company, where there's a lot of semi trucks that come in and load on log. It's manufacturing, so it's a commercial. So, and previous to the usage for it was for a distribution center that had the dairy company that had semi trucks coming in and out. So it'd be, the usage of it would be no different than what it was, even if it gets leased or sold to somebody, they'll be working with the city to get the usage permit. If it's different or doesn't adhere to the condition of what the zoning is and the usage of it, what it is right now.
So I think one of the concerns is the reinforcement of the soil. So what type of engineer are you?
I'm not sure, stormwater.
I'm sorry?
Stormwater engineer.
Stormwater engineer.
Yeah, so we're doing the parking lot, I'm doing the calculations, the bioretention, and the parking lot would be to the specs of a typical gravel parking lot, compacted soil underneath, and I'm mostly involved in the drainage and design.
The limestone,
Yeah.
layering
Yeah.
of the limestone
Correct.
to ensure that, because of the mud factor that
Correct,
they
well,
brought up.
there's currently mud there right now, so
Right,
we're
right.
replacing that mud, putting on top of the gravel to keep kind of the mud away, so not just to park the trucks on the mud that's existing there right now. Putting gravel on top of it should eliminate the mud.
Is the owner of the property going to be the one operating the business there?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay.
I know we're designing it to be used as its current uses as a logistic company, as a kind of in and out the business of distribution center. Because the building has like refrigeration kind of it's set up for distribution, so there's no plans to do anything to the building. So either if the owner's gonna be using it for that, or gonna lease it to it's gonna be used as a distribution center as it's currently built out to be.
Does the owner have any similar businesses in operation now?
Correct, yes.
Where?
In Columbus, Ohio. So they own a trucking company where they have the distribution center and they kind of a logistic company.
And it's under the same name?
I'm not sure if it's under the same name.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
You may be seated, sir. After hearing the testimony from the applicant and the other gentleman, do we have any questions for the staff?
No. So the only question, do we know that this is long-term, this is what they wanna use that property for?
We were not aware that the property was for sale, or we're not aware of any prospective buyers. Anyone who does buy it would have to follow the proper channels to get their permits, commercial compliance certificates, et cetera.
So that would still have to happen.
That's true.
Yeah, this variance wouldn't transfer to a new property sale, correct?
Well, the variance would run with the property.
It does run, okay, I get that mixed up. It's the conditional use that doesn't run with the property.
It does.
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah, the conditional use does.
Okay.
It would be the use variance The use variance typically, we usually put a condition on the use variance that it expires when the use that is using it expires.
Okay,
But conditional uses and variances run with the property.
okay.
Okay, we've heard the testimony with regards to application number BA-19-016. Pursuant to section 1211.07A1 of the Pataskala Code, we are to consider some findings of facts, determine following factors, and we will run through these and present them for the record. A, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property.
Yes.
I say yes also. B, whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibited the property from being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property.
No.
No.
I was going to say yes, but I am outvoted. It is no. C, whether the variance requested is substantial.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
I don't think it's substantial.
I don't think it is substantial either, so we have a deadlock. The reason I don't think it is substantial is simply because if there's a logistics company there that is parking trucks and they're using soil, I think that limestone gravel would be a better material to be parking the trucks on.
I think it would be two, but I think it's substantial because it's basically the whole lot.
If we're gonna stay with the zoning of having asphalt, vice, I mean, the cost difference is substantial, but improving, it's not an improved property right now, and I think for the usage, I don't know that.
Do you have any change of heart?
No.
For the sake of breaking the deadlock, I will say yes. D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance.
No.
My answer is no also. E, whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property.
No.
My answer is no also. F, whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare.
No.
My answer is no also. Whether the variance, if granted, would have adversely affect the delivery of government services.
No.
My answer is no also. H, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. The individual applicant stated that they purchased the property without knowledge. So that is a no also. I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than variance.
Yes.
Yes.
To comply with the variance.
Yes.
Or
Otherwise,
comply
could
with
be
the
something
zoning, I'm
different.
sorry.
I will say yes also. J, whether the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement at issue.
Yes.
Yes.
I will say yes also. K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is a yes also for me. We have considered the findings of fact and have laid them out for the record. Do I hear a motion to approve this application?
Go ahead.
I move to approve the variance from section 1291.02A4 of the Pataskala Code for variance application VA 19016 with the following supplementary conditions. 1, The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and Licking County Building Department within 1 year of the date of approval. 2, the applicant shall address all comments of the city engineer and the public service director. 3, the applicant will perform a tree survey of the area to be developed, which will be submitted to the planning and zoning staff. And 4, the applicant will provide L2 type landscaping along the frontage of Clema Drive.
There is a motion before the board. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Roback has seconded. Is there any discussion by the board with regards to this motion?
None.
No.
Mr. Ashcraft?
No.
There's no discussion by the board. May we have a roll call of the vote, please?
Mr. McKittrick,
Yes.
Ms. Rotovac,
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft,
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Okay, the application VA-19-016 has been approved. Ms. Paxton will be in touch with you with regards to the approval. I thank you, sir, for testifying also, and the applicant. Thank you for being here.
You guys gonna drink? Listen to you talk.
Mr. McKittrick, may I suggest a short 5-minute recess?
Yeah, that
Got
is
it.
fine. I understand we've been at this
I
for,
forgot, yeah, you use it.
almost an hour and a half now. If we can take a little more than 5 minutes, so if we can
I forgot why we're here.
reconvene at 8:05.
Take care.
We'll reconvene this meeting. It is 8:05 PM. We will now consider application VA-19-017. And staff, if you could present the report, please.
Yes, sir. Like you said, this is VA-19-017. Location here is at 253 Woodside Drive. Current acreage is about 1.3 acres. It's currently zoned R87, medium low density residential. The applicant is requesting approval of 2 variances. The first from section 1229.05C1 to allow for construction of a residence that will fail to meet the required front yard setback in the R87 zoning district. And the second being from section 1229.05C2 to allow for the construction of a residence that will fail to meet the required side yard setback in the R87 zoning district. So take a look here. We can look at the area map with the parcel outlined here in yellow. And Woodside Drive, running north to south and curving around here just to the west of the property. So again, the property itself is 1.3 acres. There's currently an existing 1,652 square foot single family home on the property that was built in 1989. Access is via a gravel driveway off of Woodside Drive to the west, and the rear is wooded, partially within the floodplain. So the existing home is approximately 15 feet from the south side property line, and is in a state of existing non-compliance with section 1229.05C2. However, it's been grandfathered in. It does meet the other setback requirements of the R87 district as the existing house is. You can take a look here at the existing conditions on the lot, again with it outlined in yellow. The existing house is right here, and it's only 15 feet from the south property line. The requirement in R87 is 25. However, since it's been continuously grandfathered in, it's existing non-compliant. Existing conditions on the lot, so we have some photos of the property here. You can see the little inset map here with the red dot showing from where the picture was taken and the red arrow showing which viewpoint it's showing from. So this is looking at the front of the house. This is to the side, looking at the north side of the house from the north. You can see the house is up here. There's a basement, garage, kind of on a drop off here. This is looking at the rear of the house from the north. And this is again looking at the rear of the house from the north again. And this is looking towards the rear of the lot from the south side of the house. So in section 1229.05C1, it states any primary structure in the R87 zoning district shall have a front yard setback of 75 feet. And for 1229.05C2, it says that any primary structure shall have a side yard setback of 25 feet on each side. So the proposal is, the applicant would like to demolish the existing home and retain the basement walls and construct a new home on top. The proposed structure will keep the same exterior dimensions of the rear to the east and extend the north and south side walls an additional 70 feet over the original 26 for 96 feet total. And the proposed structure will retain the original 60-foot width. So you can take a look here, you can see the site plan that was submitted along with the variance. I did overlay these onto it, kind of give you a better look. I know it doesn't show up very well on the screen. So the red portion back here is the existing house that is going to be demolished. However, the new structure will take the same shape on the exterior walls and extend out along the side into the green portion here, with the green part just here being the front wall of the house to the west and back up along the side here. The proposed structure is a barn dominium type, which is a steel building traditionally used for storage. Excuse me, a little typo up there, but with the addition of a living space inside, we didn't receive an elevation with the application, but I'm sure some of you don't exactly know what a barn dominium is, so I provided an example here off of Google Maps or Google Images. The front setback is 50 feet, which is proposed at 50 feet, which is 25 feet less than the required by section 122905C1, which is an increase of 18.75%. The side setback of the existing basement wall is approximately 15 feet from the south side property line. However, it is slightly angled, which means that any extension parallel with the existing basement wall will be slightly less than what is existing. Existing conditions, again, here we have a picture from the front porch looking directly across the street, so you can kind of get an idea about how far the building will come forward. The applicant has requested a total side yard setback of 10 feet to compensate for the existing basement wall being slightly angled. So 122905C2, 25 feet is required. The request is for 15 feet additional to that, or 60%. Here we have a closer look at the proposed site plan again, with the existing building being in red and the additional structure being in green. See, it's 15 feet from the existing wall here, but since it's slightly angled, it will become slightly less as the front wall comes out. Again, he's requested 10 feet total to compensate for this, and 50 feet from the front side yard, or the front line here, back to the new structure. So in the narrative statement that was supplied, the applicant stated that due to the topography of the lot and the location of the existing septic, there are limited options for expansion, and those are limited to the front or the west side and the south side of the property. On the north side, there is approximately a 10-foot drop-off to the basement garage, and to the east or rear of the home, there is an existing septic system 16 feet from the rear of the home, and behind that, another large drop-off and the floodplain. Moving the septic system, if at all possible, would be difficult and expensive. So again, here we can kind of get an idea of what the north side drop-off looks like. This red line here is the top of the foundation of the home. You can kind of see there's a drop-off here to the basement garage. And again, this picture showing that same red line, the same position, you can see that the basement wall, or the ground drops off to where that basement garage is. Here's looking at the back of the house. This little red circle here is where the existing septic system is, so you can see the proximity of it to the existing home. Here is looking on the north side of the house towards the rear of the property, or the east side. This red line here is approximately where the ground level of the house is. You can see it kind of slopes off back down into here. And this is the 100-year floodplain that is existing on the lot. You can see the large portion of the rear of it is currently within that. So further stated in the narrative, many homes along Woodside Drive were built prior to the current regulations. Many do not meet the required R87 setbacks, and the applicant believes that if the variance were to be granted, the character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered. He also stated that he does not believe the variance will cause detriment to public welfare, will not affect the delivery of government services, represents the minimum variance that will afford relief and the least modification possible. Also believes that the spirit and intent of the zoning code will be observed, and the applicant was unaware of these zoning restrictions when the property was purchased. So as part of the review, planning and zoning staff would like to offer the following comments. So staff understands the difficulty of attempting to relocate the existing septic system due to proximity of the floodplain and the existing topography of the lot. On the submitted site plan, the applicant identified widening of the driveway from 14 feet to 20 feet with expanded parking pad adjacent to the north side of the proposed structure and a fence running parallel to the front wall.
That's to
You
you.
can kind of see here the driveway extension that was proposed. So this is what the existing driveway is, kind of shaded in a lighter opaque or a transparent green here. And the proposed driveway extensions are the red parts. You can see the proposed driveway is going from 14 feet to 20 feet along the sides here. And there's a little gravel pathway going up to the side of the house that he wants to expand into a parking pad right here. So pursuant to, again, like we just saw with the previous application, 129102 Part 4, all off-street parking in platted subdivisions shall be hard surface with asphalted concrete, cement, or pavers. The existing driveway is gravel. If the applicant intends to expand the driveway with gravel, a variance would have to be required, as well as a right-of-way permit. Staff would like to see the proposed dimensions of the additional driveway area if the applicant intends to request this variance. Take a look here at the existing driveway. You can see the gravel driveway here running back into the property. This is the approximate location of where that parking pad would be. So staff does not have concerns with the driveway remaining gravel. Approximately 30 homes along Woodside Drive already have existing gravel driveways, and we did include a possible condition that the board could consider if they approve this. So section 127903A1 states that a fence or wall not exceeding 48 inches or 4 feet in height may be erected between the front building setback line and a line 3 feet from the street right of way. Setback line in R87 is 75 feet, as the proposed structure is 50 feet from the road. The fence is parallel to the front wall, as was indicated on the site plan. It would be 20 feet in front, 25 feet, excuse me, in front of that setback line, and so the maximum height would be 48 inches or 4 feet. You can see here is where the proposed fence is written on the site plan, front wall of the house being right here, and these red lines indicating where the proposed fence is located. So on the submitted site plan, no information on the height of the fence was given. However, if the applicant intends to install a fence taller than 4 feet in height, then a variance shall be required, and we also included a possible condition with this that the board may consider if they approve its variance. So the neighbor directly to the south has submitted a letter stating he has no issues with the proposed variance. Currently, the homes are 80 feet apart. The variance is approved for a 10-foot side yard setback. The houses will become potentially 75 feet apart. So the existing conditions, again, you can see here, this is the property in question with the neighbor directly to the south. He has submitted this letter. You can see the distance between the houses here. And while we were doing that, we also got the distance from the existing home here, and then driveway with the neighbor to the north right here. So we did look into as the applicant stated in the narrative, there were several older homes in Woodside Drive that did not meet the setback requirements, and that's true. It's common for homes in older subdivisions to not meet the requirements of the zoning districts that they're in. So staff did examine several homes along Woodside Drive that the applicant stated did not meet RE7 setbacks. A few examples of those being 313 Woodside Drive has a front yard setback of 50 feet, which is 25 less than required, and a south side yard setback of 18 feet, which is 7 less than required. 376 Woodside has an east side yard setback of 7 feet, which is 18 feet less than required. 476 Woodside has a front yard setback of 65 feet, which is 10 feet less than required. And 118 Woodside Drive has a north side yard setback of 2.5 feet, which is 22.5 feet less than required. And there were several other homes along Woodside Drive that, again, did not meet these regulations. So in addition to this, we did receive earlier this morning some comments from our zoning inspector. They are presented there on your dais. A short summary of those is up here, outlined in red. So several complaints have been received regarding the condition of the property. The owner was cited on August 13, 2018 for the following code violations: high grass and weeds, trash and debris, inoperable vehicles, unauthorized junkyard and commercial vehicles in a residential area. Follow-up inspection on August 20th and August 29th. The property was still in violation. The next step was to be a mayor's court summons. However, the zoning inspector met with the applicant, said they were moving out of state in October of 2018. They needed additional time to sell or remove the vehicles. and the applicant was given until the spring of this year, 2019, to correct the violations. The zoning inspector was preparing a court summons as the property is still in violation, and informed the applicant, when he was informed the applicant is staying and is looking to build on the property. Regardless of the new building request, the above violations will be required to be corrected and shall not reoccur. As the deadline for correction of violations has passed, the zoning inspector will be moving forward with the violation process and enforcement on issues that have not been abated. Staff is also now aware that the equipment on the premises is for a landscaping business. We'd just like to ensure that no commercial activity is being performed on site, and a possible modification was added to address this. And again, the full comments of the zoning inspector are there under dais. We did not receive any other comments from any other applicable departments or agencies. Surrounding properties to the north, south, and west are all RE7 medium low density residential and single family homes, and to the east we have it zoned rural residential, which is currently vacant. It's just again a graphic representation of what the zoning district looks like. I apologize, these colors when they showed up on the television were not very distinguishable, but on the right side we have all rural residential, and on the left it's all R87. Again, your findings of fact are presented here and are also listed in the staff report. Furthermore, from section 1211.072, there are other factors that the board can consider. When looking to approve a variance, we found one that was applicable to this, that being section 1211.072A, to permit any yard or setback less than the yard or setback required by the applicable regulation. And we do have the following supplementary conditions that may be considered if the board chooses to approve this variance. First one being, the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Department within 1 year of the date of approval. 2 being, a variance from section 1291.024 of the Pataskala Code shall be approved to allow for the expansion of a gravel driveway and apply to subdivision as part of variance application BA 19-017. 3 being, a variance from section 1279.03A1 of the Pataskala Code shall be approved to allow for the installation of a fence no more than 6 feet in height to be constructed within the front building setback as part of variance application BA-19-017. And 4, which was just added in response to the zoning inspector's comments, no commercial activity, landscaping, or otherwise shall be performed on site. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions from the board to the staff regarding this application? If the applicant, Mr. Chandlin, would like to come up and provide some testimony, please state your name and address into the microphone, and then you'll be sworn in.
Matt Chamlin, 253 Woodside Drive.
Raise your hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Just asking for the variance, so that way we can build a home on there. We had windows installed on the home that's currently there. It's a modular home, and the company that installed the windows installed them wrong, and we got black mold in there, so we had to choose different routes to go with remodeling it or doing otherwise with it. In regards to the equipment on the property, we've been working on all that stuff. I've been trying to get rid of it, doing everything I can, cleaning it up, so on and so forth, making it look better. The fence is not to hide the equipment or anything like that. I plan on, in the front part of the house will be a large garage, so I plan on putting as much as I can in there, working on it and getting it sold off. It was from my in-laws' business. It closed down in like 2015. I had it over at a friend's house, and he asked me to move it, so I moved it over there. We were planning on moving out of state until my mother-in-law got sick, so we chose to stay, and that's why we're choosing to do this barndominium on the property. Thank you for your time.
If you could stay there, there may be questions from the board to the applicant. Have any questions?
So the front part's gonna be like a barn then, basically.
The whole house will be like a barn, so it'll be like a full metal structure right on here. And then the front portion will be a garage, just like a regular garage. My wife had hip surgery after a car accident, and I've got fractured vertebrae from the military, so we want to keep it as a ranch. So that's why I don't want her parking down below. I'm not going to park down below. I'll
work on equipment down there or whatever, but we don't wanna be going up and down the stairs.
So you're not gonna be running a business out of there?
We have not been running a business since I put the stuff over there. It's been out of business since 2015. So,
So these pictures were taken in the fall of 2018. Out of these pictures of the non-compliancy for code violation, how many do you think have been corrected?
I don't understand the junkyard one. I mean, I've got equipment, I've got mowers and stuff on trailers.
Do you have unlicensed vehicles on the property or uninsured vehicles?
I do have a truck that's on there that doesn't have a license plate, yeah.
Okay, that might be part of that.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's
Understandable.
against code,
okay.
pretty sure that is. Thank you for
I
your
just need to
service.
get it cleaned
What-
up and sell it, so.
What agency were you, or what?
Air Force.
Air Force.
Yes, ma'am.
So as far as like these pictures, I mean, as far as compliancy, like how much, 50%, 75%, is it changed since these pictures were
What-
taken?
I'm not aware of what picture you're talking
So
about.
you have high grass and weeds, trash and debris, inoperable vehicles, unauthorized junkyards, and commercial vehicles in a residential area. Have any of these been,
Yes, the high grass and weeds, I go over there and I mow it. I haven't been over there in about 10 days, but I was over there today, it's a little too wet to mow.
so no one's occupied the property? It's
Not right now.
It's not occupied. Okay.
What was the other one?
Trash and debris?
Trash and debris has been cleaned up. I did gather up a few things. I've got a workbench that I need to take to the garbage, but that's about it out there.
Inoperable vehicles?
They all run. Every single one of them run.
Without license.
Well, yeah,
License.
so that's,
And so I see a couple of lawnmowers and I see is this tractor four-wheel drive? The John Deere?
yeah, I have two of them, yes. They're
Are they four-wheel drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We all have the wet property trying to mow scenario, and I have quite a few acres,
Yeah.
so I get it.
Well, especially down the hill there, you can't really mow that a whole lot.
Well, I think out front is where we're really
Yes,
kind of
ma'am.
concerned.
It is taken care of.
And like the tires here, has that been,
Those are new tires. They're in a dump trailer. It was ones that they were selling at the store that they had.
okay,
So
but are they still on the property, or?
yes, ma'am, they're still in that trailer.
Okay, and have you talked to them about if that's authorized or not, or?
If the tires. In the
Yeah, I
trailer
mean,
are-
it's a picture that they put out there, I just didn't know.
I don't know if it's. I think he was just taking pictures of everything that's.
No, I think that there's,
Oh, is it?
yeah, he's taking pictures to try to help
Okay.
you understand
It's
what
not-
you're
it-
not in compliance with.
They're new tires. Some of them are actually for the tractors that we have. We have turf tires and ag tires for it.
Mhm.
So
Are these stored in front of the house, beside the house,
in the
behind?
back down the hill.
In the back and down the hill.
Yes, ma'am. And I've been waiting for it to dry up so I can move that stuff.
Well, you have four-wheel drive tractor, right?
My tractor was stuck down there all winter because I took it down in the bank.
Oh.
Cause the creek, it actually dips down and then goes back up in, so it sits really muddy.
And you wouldn't attempt to do like a barn over, I have seen barn overs, the modulars,
Not over the modular,
Okay.
I don't plan on doing that.
100% tear down.
It's gonna be we're gonna tear the modular off just for resale value and the whole 9 yards, so I don't want it to be, I don't want there to be an issue if we did try and sell it later on down the road that it's.
Public
Oh,
safety is
that's a-
where I'm going, there is a
Oh.
public safety issue.
Okay.
If you have a barn inside a barn,
Oh, understand.
then
Understand.
that's harder for
Okay.
the fire department to put the fire out. So that's my main concern with that one, is to make sure that, okay.
I don't think we have.
Oh, you don't? Oh. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, it was a separate,
Oh, maybe just Rob got that, 'cause I changed into his seat.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry about that. If you would stay there for a
Yep,
second.
let us look at it.
Well, actually, I have a couple questions. What are you doing for income right now, sir?
I'm a service disabled veteran.
you're not conducting any business on this property?
No, sir.
Let me ask you this, if you're not in compliance with the zoning codes and the zoning violations you've been put on notice of, how are we to believe that you'll be in compliance with the variance and the limitations that we will, if we approve this application today?
Well, so I don't have any electric or water or anything like that over there, so I haven't been able to work on any of the equipment so that way I can get the most value out of the equipment that's there, work on it, you know, oil change, the whole 9 yards. I haven't been able to do any of that stuff. I prefer to be able to do it there because it takes quite a while.
How long has the equipment been there?
Since probably June or July of 2018.
How long has the property been vacant?
2016.
What are you gonna do with the modular home?
We're gonna tear it off.
Tear it off, and then
Yes,
are you gonna sell it, or are you gonna scrap it?
It's gonna be trashed.
What was your AFSC in the Air Force?
That's vehicle operations 22171.
Any further questions for the applicant? You can have a seat, we may call you back up. We have a speaker request form from a Mr. John Crum. Mr. Crum, are you here?
Yeah.
Would you like to come up and
Yep.
state your name and address for the record, and Ms. Paxton will swear you in?
Jonathan Crum, 227 Woodside Drive, Pataskala, 43062.
Raise your hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
This guy can tell you whatever he wants. I think that equipment has probably been there since maybe 2015. Not sure when his father-in-law died. I saw a little thing too when you guys had the variance code things or whatever, where he wasn't aware when he bought the property of the septic and everything like that. His wife was married prior to him, and her dad, I think, had probably bought the property. I don't know. Never really talked with anybody since the old guy passed away. And she got the house, and the first husband was a problem, and then the property became a problem because, as you know, nobody lives on the property. So it's a junkyard. You guys got the pictures. Then what was it, 2 summers ago? The guy wouldn't mow the yard, so the guy that lives on the opposite side of the house started mowing the yard. And so I went to ask him a question, and I said, hey, what's the deal with all the burnt grass in the ditch and your dead front yard? And he says, oh, well, this guy, sprayed the yard or something, killed that guy's yard, burnt his ditch up in front of the house, and from the front of my property to the creek, I don't know what pesticide was used, but it killed an entire yard, burned up an entire ditch, and then from the front of my property, all the way to the ditch in the back, burned up a 12-foot section that didn't grow grass until this year, started to grow grass this year. So I don't know how much poison or toxin went into the creek.
What?
The property, all the equipment on there,
I'd let him finish in the next.
all the equipment on there is just been moved around, and the first time he had it, he had to take vehicles off because he got a city notice, and then they just slowly kept coming back. And then when he wants something cleaned up, he'll park it in the back or whatever, but, you know, I mean, I didn't buy a house to have property value go down, to have somebody lie, blatantly lie up here, and it's just a problem. And no, I don't want 1 inch of that property or anything on that property coming closer to my property. My property value is already sunk. So it's not, I would say before he was running a landscape company out of the garage and had his crews coming over. But now he's not but he is moving shit every week, sorry. But he is moving stuff every week. Because I do have a room in the basement where I have a window facing the garage, and every week, at least 1 or 2 times, I hear stuff moving in and out.
So it's when now he's trying to hide everything in the back. I don't know what the reason for cutting all the wood down and creating like a stockpile yard for a sawmill. Because after that happened, now I've got nothing but carpenter ants in my house. And it's just, there's trash, garbage, vehicles, and just, I mean, if the guy was gonna do work in the pictures that you guys got, he's got a full bundle of plywood, I'm imagining, maybe a full bundle of drywall, that have sat there for 2 years. Molded, outside. Well, if you pay for that, wouldn't you cover it up with tarps or anything? I mean, this is the level of I'm gonna get to it and I'm gonna do it. And you already see the number of violations that haven't been met. So nothing is coming closer to my property.
Your property is adjacent to this?
My property is the 227 Woodside, where it would be the driveway side.
Map
Just
on
north,
that.
first house north.
And what year was this herbicide spray?
It's been 2 summers. It's been 2
Summers.
summers.
And was
You
that
can still
recent?
come and see the ditches in my yard where the water's flowing and eating up. It's killed the tree, killed the entire yard, all the way to the creek.
Was anyone notified?
And I don't know what dumped in the creek.
Was anyone notified?
No.
Which property on the map, sir? If you
Where's
could
my
point it-
property?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you
It's
could point
just
it
north.
My
out.
property is up above. Yep,
Just
right there.
How long have you lived there, sir?
I think we moved in maybe in 2000. No, I want to say 2003, 2002.
Any other questions for Mr. Crum? You may have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chamblin, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to come back up and address, any of Mr. Crum's concerns.
So do you guys wanna ask me questions about them, or?
Do you have anything you would like to say in response?
Well, with the dead grass and everything, the neighbor to the south, the one that wrote the letter and everything, his wife was the one that sprayed weed killer on their driveway and used way too much. It ran from their driveway, she did the whole driveway, it killed outside of their drive and in their yard, all the way down to the ditch that runs from Mr. Perry's house all the way to Mr. Crumb's home. I was not the one who did that. It was Kathy Perry. So I didn't do any of that stuff.
I have a further question.
Yes, sir.
Who is gonna build the barndominium?
So I'm currently looking at Garber or Kentucky Steel Buildings are two of the people that I'm currently looking at.
So this will be a professional contractor,
Yeah, they're gonna-
licensed contractor.
Yes, sir.
And you have financing in place?
I'm doing all the financing myself, yes.
But have you applied for a VA loan, or a new construction VA, or what kind of loan are you looking at?
No, I'm not getting a loan.
You're just paying cash?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Chamblin?
What was the dimensions of the barndominium?
So the actual without the front porch and everything, it'll be either a 60 by 70 or a 60 by 70 or a 60 by 80. With the front portion of it will be garage, and it'll be a 60 by 30.
Any other questions for Mr. Chamblin?
I really have not operated the business out of there. We've done work, yeah, we have cut down trees because they were, hanging over the house and everything like that. I mean, do you want me to go on any of that stuff? I mean,
No, I don't think that's necessary. sir.
okay.
You can have a seat.
Yes, sir,
Thank
thanks.
you.
And I'm sorry,
Oh,
one more question. What percentage disabled have you been given by
I'm
the
currently
VA?
60.
At 60%?
I'm working on my back. They still haven't done my back or my left shoulder.
And were you a combat veteran?
Not a combat veteran.
Okay.
It happened while I was
In the
our-
service?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board for the staff?
We
like,
don't have any responsibility over these violations, right? And the violations that came in today's letter, there's nothing we can do as a board about that.
Could this be tabled until we saw that? We saw some
I mean, that's the
compliance?
board's decision.
I mean, it sounds like, you know, some of these violations, have been there for a minimum of a year.
Mhm.
And, you know, at some point in time, some of them it could have been corrected, but
We don't
that's not really our jurisdiction, we're not, it's,
And the zoning inspector is going to continue the enforcement process now that the, I guess, time to have those issues abated has passed.
I guess the question is there anywhere in the code, and Scott is probably the proper person to answer this question, as to whether a pending application can be denied due to prior or pending zoning violations? And that may be a question.
I don't think it mentions that anywhere in the code. I think that'd be more of a question for our law director.
And that's probably a question that I think would be appropriate for the law director.
So should we table it until the law director can get us an answer?
I would feel more confident, and I'd like to see pictures of the current property, not from fall of 2018.
There are pictures of the current.
Oh, are there?
These
Those are
were,
the
these were
current.
taken today.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to see more of what he wants to put up there, what it's gonna look like, how it's gonna affect the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'd like to see what type of
Pictures of
structure,
the
I mean, a
structure.
40 by 60 building is substantial.
So elevations.
Yeah, yeah. So
Well,
that, and
I've
it,
seen that's fairly popular now, this kind of structures. I saw several going up north and back. So I understand that, but I'd like to see more what the finished product's gonna look, how it's gonna affect everybody else.
I feel like it.
I think that's important.
Wouldn't be a problem if it was set back.
You can come up and speak, come on up.
Come back up, sir.
Are you wanting to see like the inside plans and everything on what I plan on doing?
Actually, what it's gonna look like from the
From
outside.
the
Yeah, outside.
Okay.
yeah.
And then, the zoning violations will be taken care of with the building, because I'm gonna put all the equipment inside of it, fix it up and take care of it, so.
Zoning
I don't
is
know
a
if
lot
that'll
about
help.
aesthetics.
I'm sorry?
Zoning is a lot about aesthetics.
I understand, so, I mean, I can get it taken
I-
care of until,
I think that your violations, and I hope I'm not speaking out of term here, but you need to be taking care of your violations regardless of this application. I mean, those should be taken care of, period,
yes, sir.
because you've been put on notice of that.
And we were told as long as we were working on them, which we have them,
Yeah, but I'm not sure that simply, constructing a new building is taking care of those violations. That's just my opinion.
I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
we don't wanna see you get halfway through your tear down and it sits there for another 5 years. That's my main concern, is that the tear down is, at this point in time, I'm not seeing to where you're complying with our other ordinance
Yes,
and
ma'am.
zoning. And so if you can't comply with those, for me, as a citizen of Pataskala,
Yes, ma'am.
and I would not like my neighbors to do that to me, that is a major concern.
I
As a
agree.
veteran also, I think from one veteran to another, that you know that our standards are higher in the Air Force.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
There were a lot of other contributing factors that
Yes,
won't go into
and
it,
we do
so-
take that in consideration, but please,
Yes.
if you need help, there are many people that are more than willing to help,
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
I agree. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to entertain a motion to table this until the next meeting. And in the meantime, if we could have our law director provide an opinion with regards to, like I stated before, whether this board can consider an application when the applicant is currently facing zoning violations. and whether this, application is appropriate to address the zoning violations. I think that would be the second.
And maybe an update on the zoning
Right,
violation
sir,
progress.
sir, you've had your chance.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So I will, entertain a motion to table this until next month's meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second.
I can't add anything real quick, just from my perspective. I
Um,
live across the street, lived there for 40 years.
you didn't sign a speaker request form.
Well, you haven't
And-
asked
and
anybody
sir-
else for one,
sir,
never mind.
I apologize.
Gotcha.
Before you do that, and since you're here today, I'm gonna grant you, 5 minutes to provide,
Won't need that long, right?
5 minutes to provide fact testimony only, not opinions. So if you come up to the mic, say your name and address, and Ms.
I'm an Air
Paxton-
Force vet also, long before you.
Do you swear or
I swear,
affirm
yeah.
the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I live next door, my name's Timothy Kuntz. I'm at 180 Woodside, I live on the other side of the street, just north, within the 300 feet, which is why I guess I got the letter from you guys. When the business went out, his wife's business, who he ended up marrying, when they got Dahlgrens or whatever, for the first year, 2015, whatever year it was, they ran it out of the thing. They had a crew coming in, they'd leave, they'd come in the morning, guys would get into vehicles, tow stuff out, do yard work, whatever, and come back. Okay, and people have been complaining ever since then. I've been retired for 10 years, okay, so I've got nothing to do but sit around and see what goes on in the neighborhood. Like I said, I'm directly across the street. It's been a dump ever since. And, I mean, I understand the issue with the mold, the walls and all that stuff. The pushing to the south that he accused of, I don't know how he could have done it, because the water runs the other way. It runs from north to south along there. So whatever he put in his lawn, the guy from the south, that wouldn't have gone to the north and passed all the way to his front thing. John lives across the street, and I've known him just casually, over the years. I'm moving, so my concern, in fact, I already have another home. So my concern is just from an aesthetic standpoint, I can't imagine a large barn. If it was set back, it may not be a problem if the area was cleaned up. But being up front with all the homes along there, it's gonna be the only thing you see coming down the side of the road. If it's put up 25 feet in front of the other homes, which are all shorter ranches, it's gonna be a visually out of place, put it that way.
Thank you.
That's just the way I would say. That's it, that's pretty much it, and, like I said, it's been a dump, and yeah, that's garbage about it being cleaned up or ever having any intent to, because you could just watch it happen,
Thank you for your
Thank you.
service and thank you for your testimony.
Because I've, provided that opportunity for that gentleman to speak, Mr. Camlin, do you have any response to that briefly?
Just one thing that I had talked to, can't remember the guy's name that I did get the zoning violations for, and he did tell me that I could put up a building to store my stuff in, and that would take care of the violations. That was the other thing that I wanted to have, that's it.
Okay.
So-
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Do you intend to live there?
Yes, we do.
You can have a seat.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, let's go back to our motion to table this matter to ask the law director the questions I previously stated. I believe that, Ms. Rodeback had motioned and Mr. Howe had seconded. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so, is there any discussion on that motion?
I do have one thing. Is there anything else you'd like to see in the time period while this is tabled? I know Mr. Ashcraft mentioned the elevations, the exterior.
I think it's important to know what the exterior is gonna look like. I agree with the gentleman that lives across the street. I wouldn't want just a flat wall barn looking at the Park Road. It's R87, so it should be, it can be a barn dominium, but I've seen them look very, very nice with big porches around and everything. I mean, you can make them look really, really nice.
Oh, sure.
So I got no, that, I'd like to see more what he intends to do
And I do know,
rather than just giving him approval and throw out the metal building.
I do know of a couple of barndominiums in the area, if you want pictures to help.
Well, I wanna see what he wants to do.
Okay. Yeah, no, that, and I agree with that one too,
Yes.
I do, 100%. A 40 by 60 is the same size as my barn, so that's a large
That's a big barn.
facility.
I actually have a question.
We're past that.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
we can talk after, but we gotta get through this.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
close up the-
Yeah,
You can come back to the next meeting and present your questions. I apologize. Mr. Howe, do you have any further?
The only other thing that I'd like to see is maybe in the zoning inspector's progress report on how it's going. I mean, he's the one that's been, or they've been, seen it before and after, so.
Any other questions from the staff to the board as to what we want to see at the next meeting?
I don't believe so. It's up to you.
All right, that has been the discussion on the motion. Can we have the roll call of the vote, please?
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes.
Ms. Rotobeck?
yes.
This application, VA-19-017 has been tabled until the next meeting. All of you gentlemen, I appreciate your time coming here and providing testimony today. Notices will go out again as to when this is considered at the next meeting. You're free to go if you'd like. Let me take a second just to collect my thoughts. We must go through the findings of fact and get the final approval of the findings of fact. I believe we have 3 of them for tonight. It's not my recollection how this goes exactly, but I will do my best to remember. Do we have a motion to approve the findings of fact as stated earlier in this meeting for application number VA-19-011?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the approval of the findings of fact for that application?
No,
And can we have a roll call of the vote, please?
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Ms. Rotobeck?
yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes. And, mark that right there. We next move to the findings of fact for, application VA-19-015. Do we have a motion to approve these findings of fact as stated earlier in the meeting today?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second by Mr. Ashcraft? Is there any discussion?
No,
No.
And a roll call of the vote, please.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes.
Ms. Rotobeck?
yes.
We have we're next looking at the findings of fact for application number VA-19-016. Is there a motion to approve these findings of fact as stated earlier in this meeting?
So moved,
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Howe. Roll call of the vote, please.
Ms. Rotobeck?
yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
And we have tabled the meeting, or the application VA-19-017, so we will not be going through or approving these findings of fact. Let me just make a couple notes here just before I forget. Sorry, folks. Do I have to write down the supplementary information?
No, I'll
Okay.
get it, don't worry about it.
Thank you. Okay, and next on the agenda, we are voting on the approval of the minutes for the, is it the May 11th, 2019?
May 13th.
May 13th? 2019 regular meeting minutes. Everyone has taken a look at them. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? No discussion, can we have a roll call of the vote, please?
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes.
Ms. Rotovac?
Yes.
I will mark the date here of approval as June 10th, 2019, sign my name, so I don't forget. And, any other business for the board by the staff? By any of the other board members? I do have one thing.
No, not for me.
This is very hard for me to say. Most of you know that my boss passed away April 13th. As of June 30th, I am probably no longer employed. That has sped up some decisions that my wife and I were making for about 2 years down the road, and that includes putting our home up for sale to move in closer into Columbus. I've met with a realtor already. The house will likely be listed later this week. Once I get an offer, I will be submitting a letter of resignation from the board to the mayor. And so that's either a bonus or a detriment to the rest of the board members. But
It's too bad.
it-
Life changes, hopefully a good open door.
right, we were moving at some point, but this was just this. It's just the nail in the coffin. I can't
Right.
chance being unemployed for a long time again. That
Right.
happened to me once, so.
Oh. Never fun.
Alright, with that business, I do have one question. Doesn't Rob live on that drive
Yeah.
in that area?
Yeah.
Okay, so why isn't he here to consider this?
In a
I think he
business
had
meeting.
work arrangements.
Yeah, he had a business
I'm kidding. Anyway,
meeting. We're still recording.
don't tell him I said that. I will miss him though. Is there a motion to
Can we
adjourn?
redact that after the record, please?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? No discussion, roll call the vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Ms. Rotovac?
Yes.
Mr. McKittrick?
Yes. And this meeting is adjourned.